Okay, we'll be starting in just a few minutes. While we're waiting, it might be a good idea to get a pencil and some paper because you can use that to write a few notes. Okay, and also you might want to use that to write down your answers to the questions before you put them in the chat box. So yeah, we'll be getting started. We've got a lot of people registered today. And I know people often arrive a little bit late, so in just a couple of minutes we will get started. Okay, so I think we will get started now with our introduction to this webinar. So welcome to the webinar. As you can see, it's an IELTS reading and vocabulary webinar. So we're going to get started and we're going to start working our way through some of the basics about IELTS reading before we actually do a live IELTS reading test together, and I'll be able to give you an idea of what your score would be if you actually took the test itself. Okay, so let's get started with that. IELTS reading and vocabulary. Welcome to the webinar. Why not say hello in the chat box and let me know where you're from? I'll start off. So let's see, let me open the chat box so I can do that. Hello, my name's Andy and I am from England. So feel free to drop your name in that chat box and let me know where you're from. So let's get started. Okay, welcome to the virtual classroom. This webinar is for anyone taking the IELTS test anywhere in the world, even native speakers. And I see someone that's introduced themselves in the chat box, Pia from India. So welcome to the webinar, Pia. So this is a new webinar. It's not one that's been given before. It is one that's been recorded. And the introduction, though, is about myself and my experience in the company. So for the next 2 minutes, you might hear something that you've heard before. But after that, we're going on to a completely new reading, completely new vocabulary. So let's keep going. Okay, my name's Andy. That's me here with the MacBook Pro. I've taught English for about 26 years, and I've been involved with the IELTS test for about half that time. I'm the lead teacher in an online school called English with an Expert. This school has helped many students get from band 7 to band 9. Yes, even band 9. I sometimes don't mention that because it doesn't sound true, does it? But several of our students have got an overall band 9. And in fact, last week, one of them got a band 8.5 overall. Has just been accepted into a top Singaporean university. So what do? I teach English online through the website, englishwithanexpert.com. I teach all things IELTS, including writing, speaking, listening, and reading. You can find out, if you want to find out more about that, you can just go to the website, which is, if I paste that into the box, englishwithanexpert.com. But nevertheless, I've chosen a reading today, which is going to give you lots of good vocabulary for the IELTS writing part of the test and for the IELTS speaking part of the test as well. In fact, if you email me after this webinar, I'll send you a task 2 writing question and vocabulary exercise, which is connected with the vocabulary you're going to learn today. Today's topic, as you can see here, is outer space, basically. In recent times, there's been quite a few topics related to space in the IELTS test, especially in IELTS writing. This vocabulary then you can learn today could be used in several of those questions. So if you would like an example test 2 writing question, just send me an email and let me paste that email address into the chat box. Send me an email to andy@englishwithanexpert.com and and just ask for the test question, put that as the subject line, I will send it to you. If you send that to me today or over the weekend, I'll send the question to you sometime next week, okay? Maybe not immediately, but I will send it to you next week. So on with today's lesson. As we've discussed in previous webinars, there are 3 main IELTS reading skills. Those are skimming and scanning and reading for detail. Okay, those are the 3 skills the IELTS test is testing you on. If you don't know what those are, then you need to learn what they are, because they're very important, essential things that you need to know for passing the IELTS reading test. Now, in each webinar, we focus on one of those skills. And in a way today, we're focusing on the reading for detail skill. And all that really means is that when you find the place in the reading with the answer, you read that section of the text very carefully in order to get the answer and to check the answer. Because one of the big secrets, I guess, about the IELTS reading test is you should not be reading everything. Hello, Akshay from India, nice to meet you. You should not be reading everything, okay? Because you don't have time. There's 3 readings, about 2,000 words in each, maybe more. You've got 40 questions, you've got 60 minutes. The test is designed so there's not enough time to read it all, okay? You have to use a special technique for every question type to find the place with the answer. And I'm going to be teaching you that technique soon for these questions today. When you find that place, you read for detail, you check what the answer is. Well, also, each time we have this reading webinar, we focus on 1 or 2 question types. And today, we're going to be focusing on these. It's the last reading webinar, in fact, and we're going to be focusing on these question types. Those are the ones we haven't tackled so far. And in fact, these are the 2 most difficult question types. As this is the final webinar, I thought we'd choose the most difficult ones because you need the most skills that you've learned before in order to tackle these. Now, identifying writers' views or claims, that's really a word which, what it really means is the yes, no, not given questions. So these questions are yes, no, not given. Now, analysis of the tests has shown that the tests that most people, questions which people find the most difficult and where they make the most mistakes are those, especially the difference between no and not given. And we're going to talk about that later. Personally, though, I think these are the most difficult questions to answer, matching information. The matching information questions are the ones where you are given a statement and you have to say which paragraph is connected with that statement. So it's not matching headings, but it's matching a statement with information inside a paragraph. That is what I think is the most difficult. And those are the 2 we're going to be doing today. But before we do that, we're going to practice one of the most important skills in IELTS for whichever part of the test you're taking, and that is knowing how to use synonyms. Does anybody know what synonyms are? Anybody got any idea what synonyms are? If you do, drop a note in the chat box. but it's very important to know what these are and to use them in the writing, in the speaking, and especially as well in the listening and the reading. You need them in every part of the test. Yeah, Pia said similar words, and that's basically the right answer. Yes, similar meaning words, exactly. It's words which have a similar meaning. So for example, the word star, we're talking about space today. So if we look at the word star, can you think of any synonyms for that word star? What's a synonym? What other word could you use instead of the word star? Any ideas? Anybody got any? Give you another few seconds. Shine, not a bad attempt. It's a related word. It's not exactly a synonym. It's a slightly different meaning, but yeah, star shine. So, and sometimes there is no synonym for a word. Think of the closest star to Earth. What is the closest star to Earth? Any ideas? If you look into the sky, can you see a star? What is that star called? Let me tell you, it's the sun. The sun is a star. So that's, in a way, a synonym. The sun is a star. Another word you could use, maybe you don't know, white dwarf. That's just with an F at the end. That's another kind of star. But no, so those are examples of synonyms. But let's move forward and explain a bit more. So when answering an IELTS reading question, we need to find the key word in the question and match it with a word in the reading. Okay, and that's why synonyms are important in reading questions, because you have a question, but it's using different words to the reading, and you have to be able to match those words together, match the synonyms together to find the answer. Now, sometimes the key word in the question is the same as the word in the passage, in which case it's easy, right? It could be the word space in the question, and it's the word space, as you can see in red on here, in the answer. Sometimes it's the words in the question are in the reading and the question are different, but their words are related. So it's still quite easy. And here's an example: space and spaced. Any idea what does spaced mean? Anyone got any idea about spaced? It's a difficult one in a way. So I think I might just paste the answer in the chat box there. It's to have a particular distance between things. So an example sentence you can see in the chat box: the measurements were recorded at equally spaced intervals. That's good vocabulary for a task 1 essay. Task 1 IELTS writing essay. The measurements were taken at equally spaced intervals, like 1 year between each, for example. So another example then is space and space age. Okay, the word space age. Any idea what space age means? One or two meanings for space age, but the most common one is space age means using the most modern technology or designs, kind of like an adjective. So in that chat box, you can see that example sentence: the car includes space-age technology designed for aircraft. Okay, but often, and this is the most likely case, the key word in the question is a synonym or parallel expression of the word in the passage. So parallel expression is a synonym of the word synonym almost, but parallel expression means there's more than one word which has the same meaning as another word. So we might have a single word, and that parallel expression might have 5 words, but the meaning is the same. And that's the sort of thing we can get in the IELTS test quite often. So if we go and have a look at some of these then. And these are words you might see in the test today. So knowing these words might help you a little bit. So let's look at the word space again. A synonym of the word space is the word expanse. Have you heard of that word expanse before? An expanse. Let me put a definition for you in the chat box. An expanse is a large area of land or water or sky. For example, we might say, I saw vast expanses of farmland. So an expanse is a synonym of space. Another example then is the word interval. Do you know what the word interval means? Can you type fast enough to tell me the word interval? The word interval. Good, excellent, yeah, well done. A gap between two times, that's exactly it. And I'll just paste my slightly longer definition there. A period of time between two events. So for example, the normal interval between our meetings is 6 weeks. That's a word you might be able to use in academic task 1 essay as well. Okay, here's an important word for today's lesson, which is coming up in a question later. The word vacuum. Any idea what vacuum means? Empty, yeah, good. That's pretty much it. It's basically, it's a space that has had all the air and any other gases removed from it. So it's a completely empty space. Good. Okay, here is what we call a real parallel expression, where we're using more than one word as basically a synonym, a parallel expression of the word in the question. So we've got here the word space and then the whole of the universe outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce today's reading to you. But before we start doing the actual reading questions, we're going to have a synonym quiz. So you're going to become more familiar with the reading through this quiz, and the vocabulary you learn in this part will also help you with an essay question or speaking topic on the same sort of language area. Okay, so let's go there and start to have a look. Okay, so on the left, you can see these words: spear, circumstance, sut. On the right, you can see the reading. What you have to do is find the synonym of that word in this text. When you do that, write it down, either put it in the chat box or put it on a piece of paper and then type it in the chat box later, okay? The answers are in text order. That's something we're going to talk about a bit more later. It's a very important thing to know which questions in IELTS have the answers in text order. That means the answer to number 1 will be at the beginning, and then the answer to number 2 will come after that. The answer to number 3 will come after that. So what I want you to do is look at the words on the left, find the synonym on the right-hand side, then go to the next one and go to the next one. Put your answers in the chat box when you've finished. I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to do that, okay? I'll probably come back and ask you how far you have reached, so I can know when you've finished. If you do finish, just type finished in that chat box, and then we will go over the answers. And don't forget, this is going to be our reading today. So reading through this now is going to help you prepare for those reading questions. Okay, so I'll give you about 4 minutes to do this. Okay, how are we doing? How far did you get so far? What number did you get to? Are you all still very busy finding your answers? Some of these words are quite difficult today, but those are good words to learn. Yeah, I'll just give you another minute and I'll come back in a second and see how you do. So just for those of you who have just arrived, because people are sort of dropping their connections sometimes, we've got some new people here, we're just going down this list of keywords on the left and connecting those keywords with the synonyms in the reading. It's all in text order, okay? When you've finished, type finished in the chat box. I'll be back again in another minute or two to go over the answers. Okay, let me just check in and see how you are all doing then. How far have you got? Todd, how many have you done? Pia, how many have you done? Okay, Pia's got to number 4. Okay, is a bit difficult, this one, I guess. Only a couple so far. Todd's just managed to join. Okay, I'll just give you a little bit longer to do that then. Okay, and then we'll go over the answers together. And then we'll move on to some real reading questions. Okay, I think we've had quite a long time for that, so I'm going to start going through the answers. We'll go one by one, and that means you'll have the chance to look ahead to the next one. Now, one important tip about this is what I'm going to tell you in a few minutes, is that with yes, no, not given questions, and true, false, not given questions, one of the most important things to note is that the answers are in text order. And that's the same with these questions here. So when we get to number 8, for example, maybe number 8 is here, the answer to number 9 has to be after that. And the answer to number 10 has to be after that. So every time we answer one of these, we're making it easier to find the answer to the next one. So bear that in mind as we do this. Let's start to go through the answers together. The first one is the word spear, okay? And that's how we pronounce that, spear. What is the synonym for spear in the reading? Area outside the atmosphere. Okay, good, Pierre. Todd's got Earth question mark. It could be, I guess, but Pierre's got the one I intended you to get. A spear, if I put the answer in the chat box, is a particular area of interest, activity, or work that is one of the many parts of the life. So, yeah, I've chosen the word area. I think that was the best one, but Earth kind of works as well. Let's go to number 2. I think number 2 is more precise. There's only one word that it can be, really. The word circumstance. It's still difficult, though, this one. What is the synonym for circumstance? And let me just highlight the answer for number 1, by the way. So there's the answer for number 1. Number 2, though. Todd thinks it's the word phenomena, and that's a very popular word in the IELTS test. Everybody uses that word a lot. And many test takers use that word incorrectly. Anyone else? Does anybody agree? Does anybody have a different answer for number 2? Todd is right. It's the word phenomena. Okay, it's the word phenomena. Now, I'm just going to paste the meaning of that in the chat box because people use this in the IELTS test all the time. But the meaning of phenomena is this. It's a fact or an event in nature or society, especially one that is not fully understood. So it's something that we don't really understand. An example sentence there. We were hoping science could somehow explain this strange phenomenon. It could explain this mystery that we don't understand. Now, many people use that word phenomenon in the IELTS test about something that we do understand. And so that's an incorrect use. You should only really use the word phenomena or phenomenon when we don't understand why something is happening. Okay, good. Number 3 is the word sut. Any ideas? That's a word that you don't hear very often, I guess, these days. Is phenomena plural? Not really. It's a Latin root word. So it's a good question, Pierre. It's yes, but English speakers usually regard it as a singular word. It's one of those root words that comes from Latin. So whilst this technically we've got singular and plurals there, a native speaker usually regards that as singular. So my advice is use that word with singular verbs because that's what native speakers usually expect. If you go to a dictionary, you might get a slightly different, more technical answer, but native speakers will usually treat it as singular. Okay. So sut, number 3. It's like the word, while I'm waiting for someone to put an answer in for the word sut, just going back to that question, that phenomenon, it's like the word data, you know. The word data is kind of technically plural. Datum is singular, but many native speakers always use the word data as if it's a singular word, basically. So if you use the plural verb with data, it will look a bit strange to a native speaker. But if you look in the dictionary, it will tell you it's plural. Okay, so Todd's got the word dust, and yeah, he's got it right. Soot, literally, is black powder that is produced when wood or coal is burnt. So when you burn some wood, the black bit that's left, we can call soot. And yeah, that's dust as well. Dust, of course, is the thing that gets everywhere and makes that you have to brush off your table after a day or two. Okay, the word steady, number 4. Anybody got one for steady? Now remember, the answers are coming after each other. So you don't have to look before the word dust. You can look after the word dust. It won't be too far away. Steady, Pierre's got the word constant, and he's right. Or she. Actually, I don't know, Pierre. Apologies. I don't know if you were a he or a she, but you are correct. A she, so my apologies. She's correct. Pierre's correct. It's the word constant. That's a very good word. Those are good words to be using in IELTS writing academic task 1, right? It means something does not change. For example, it's in the chat box, the car was traveling at a constant speed of 50 miles an hour. So if you're describing a line graph in academic task 1, you can say there was a constant increase, for example. It increased at the same speed all the time. Okay, good. Number 5, substance. Now remember this when you do the yes, no, not given questions, okay? You don't need to look up here anymore. You just need to look after this word. For the word steady, the word substance, number 5, the word substance. Pierre thinks matter. Anybody else? Todd thinks matter. Anybody disagree? You're correct. Very good. I can see that both of you must have quite a high level of English already, in a way. Matter is what we are made of. It's the things what we are made of matter. Okay, very general word, very scientific word. Substance is also another general word meaning something, the things that we are made of. Let's go to number 6. Maybe a little bit easier. Number 6, the word thought. This is a good word you can use in many task 2 essays or many speaking tests as well. The word thought. What is a synonym of the word thought? Remember, ignore this bit, go down here. Pierre thinks it's the word assumed. And what do you think that word means, Pierre? And does anybody agree or disagree with that? Let's go check. Yes, it's the word, as you can see here, it's the word assumed. And yeah, you said to think of something. And you're right, but let me just narrow that definition a little bit. It's something that you think, assumed means something you think is true, but you don't know really. Okay? I thought I gave you the money last week. Didn't I give you the money? You maybe. I assumed he gave you the money last week. I thought he had done it, but I didn't know. So assumed. 7, compactness. Compactness. So Todd's got condensations, and it could be actually, but it's not, because there's another word that comes, see, it's all in text order, so there's another word that comes before that. You've gone too far. Compactness. Compact, what does it mean? What does compact mean? Yeah, okay, good, Todd. It means density. So yeah, so one of the things to remember is it's all in order. So the answer Todd came up with is too far away. Density, though, is the correct answer. Compactness, density. And that's how compressed, how tight something is. So here's my hand, it's very open, and I'm making it more compact, more tight, more dense in a way. Good, interconnect. Number 8, interconnect. Interact. Exactly. It's a bit easier because you've got the word inter here and inter there. Yeah. If two things interact, they have an effect on each other. So my hands are interacting now. Good. Okay, here's a real sort of space word. This is a word you might easily use in a space question, and they are becoming quite common these days, these space questions. That's because IELTS reading task 2 question, IELTS writing task 2 questions often connect with current events, and space is entering current events more and more these days. So constellation, what word does that connect with? Galaxies, star systems, yeah, I mean, I guess it could be both in a way, but again, the one that I chose was galaxies, but star systems, where is that word? I can't quite see it at the moment. Star systems is down there. So it's this word here, galaxies. Now Todd's chosen star systems, but the problem is, Todd, that the answer to number 10 is before that word star systems. So if we go in text order, it has to come before that. So that's why galaxies is the correct answer. And the answer to number 10 then is after this and before star systems. And yes, Pia's got it. It's the word mysterious. So these two words are also very, very useful for many task 2 topics and speaking topics, especially this word. Inexplicable means there's no explanation. There's no explanation. It's inexplicable why world governments have not tackled global warming yet. It's inexplicable why more people are not taking action to save the environment. And mysterious, meaning something that cannot be understood or explained. Excellent. Okay. That was a part of the reading that we're going to be doing today then in our mock test. So let's move on to the live mock test. Now we are all warmed up and do a reading test together. This is what the paper score sheet looks like. Of course, many of you will do the reading test on a computer these days. And let me give you a tip about the computer test. On the computer test, you are able to highlight words. And you should try and do that, because that's one of the techniques you should be doing. As you read through the reading, before you start answering the questions, you should look at the topic sentence of each paragraph, which is usually the first sentence, and underline the keywords of each paragraph. That's the skimming. And you should do the skimming before you start answering questions. You read the topic sentence, usually the first sentence of each paragraph, and you highlight or underline the keywords, so that when you get to the questions, you already know what each paragraph is about. If you know the topic of each paragraph, then when you read the question, you will know immediately which paragraph has the answer, okay? And that's what we call skimming, which we've talked about in previous webinars. If you want to see one of the previous webinars, send me an email. I'll send you a link so you can go and watch it, okay? On the screen now, this is the whole reading that we're going to be doing. Take a screenshot of this if you would like to, because you won't see the whole reading in one slide again, because in order to get the questions onto the screen, I have to make space. So I've divided this reading into 2 sections when we get to the questions. So let's move on then to talk a little bit then about reading for detail. This is the last of the 3 IELTS reading skills that you really need to master. And it's testing your ability to really check that the answer is correct. So we use skimming and scanning to find the place in the reading with the answer. But if you might know the place with the answer, but to really know if that answer is correct, you then have to read the detail very carefully, because there might be something in that sentence or sentences which is a bit sly, which changes the meaning of what you thought it said. It might say something and say, but this isn't true. It reverses the meaning. So you have to, when you find the place with the answer, using skimming, which I've just explained, and scanning is looking for a word that stands out. So a word like a person's name, the capital letter, or the year, a number. You can scan the text and find the place in the reading very quickly. When you find the place with the answer, read that small section very carefully. So most of the reading you will ignore, but the part of the reading with the answer you will read very, very carefully. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to talk about yes, no, not given. Okay, so here is the strategy for the yes, no, not given. The answers to yes, no, not given questions are in text order. And I've explained that in detail with that synonym quiz. That's the most important thing to know. And there are other questions in the IELTS test which are in text order as well. For example, multiple choice questions with one correct answer are in text order as well, and other ones. Knowing which ones are in text order helps you to find the answer. If you found the answer to number 1 and you found the answer to number 3, the answer to number 2 has to be between those. If it's not between them, then it's not given. Okay, so that's the first and most important tip. Next, there's always at least one yes. I shouldn't really say always. There's never an always in reality, but there's usually at least one yes, one no, and one not given answer. The only exception is when there are only 3 questions. Now, sometimes if you're taking the IELTS general test, readings 1 and 2 are a bit different to the other readings in the academic test. Reading 3 is the same. So sometimes in the IELTS general test, you might have only 3 questions for yes, no, not given, in which case this is not true. But if there's 4 or more questions, at least one will be yes, at least one will be no, and at least one will be not given. If that's not the case in the practice test that you are taking online, then that is not a good practice test. And I looked at one today in one big website with lots of IELTS practice tests, and they had one reading where they had all not given and one no answer. And that is not correct, because there should be at least one of each. Okay. Next tip, yes, no, not given questions are about opinions. They're not about facts. And they are always about the author's opinion, not somebody else's opinion. So with a yes, no, not given question, you're looking for the author's opinion. With true, false, not given, the difference between true, false, not given is you're looking at facts. Okay, so there's a bit of a difference there. The reading might say, it was very hot outside, but I felt cold. Then the question might be, if it's yes, no, not given, did the author feel it was hot outside? And the answer would be no, because the author said it was hot, but he felt cold. Okay, so there's a difference. Okay, now we've talked about that. Let's talk about the difference between no and not given, because this is a fact that the most wrong answers given by test candidates is between false and not given, or no and not given, basically. So let's have a look at this short explanation. The key to understanding this is that there will never be no information given. Okay, there'll never be zero information given about something. You will always find something from the question mentioned in the reading. But if all the information is not there, if you only have half the information, in a sense, then the answer will be not given. So let's look at this example. The example reading is very short reading. In my experience, most employees in Scotland spend at least 45 minutes traveling to work. The question, in the author's experience, note it's talking about feelings here, opinions. In the author's experience, employees in Scotland live a long way from work. So what do you think? Is this yes? Is the answer no? Or is the answer not given? Put your answer in the chat box. What do you think? There's your reading. There's your question. Is it saying the same thing? In which case it would be a yes. And Pierre's put yes. Thank you, Pierre. Is it saying the opposite thing? And if it says the opposite, then it will be no. Or is it saying different things? Is it not saying the same thing? So I've got yes as well. And that's why I've got this example here, because you're both, this time you're both wrong. Okay, the answer is not given. Okay, why is the answer not given? The reading is talking about time. Okay, and the question is talking about distance. So it might take them 45 minutes to get to work, but maybe that's because the roads in Scotland are not very good. Or maybe it's because there's a lot of traffic jams in Scotland. And so they're traveling a short distance, but it takes them a long time. So we don't know. We don't know if the employees are living a long way from work. Okay, good. I'm glad you've got that. Because as I said, that's where the most marks are lost in IELTS test. And you know, very, very, very roughly, let me explain how it's marked. Okay, you get 40 marks in IELTS reading. You don't get an exact score. You get a mark out of 40. Now, if you go on the internet, it will say something like, you know, you need 30 marks to get band 7. But actually, every test is different. Some are easier, some are harder. If it's a harder test, you need less marks. If it's an easier test, you need more marks to get the band score. The computer will calculate what you need to get based on everybody's answers. It will decide how difficult that test was. But so very, very roughly, it's a very rough guideline. If you get 6 out of 10, that's like 28 out of 40. If you get about 6 marks, then you're going to be getting about a band 6. Okay, so getting another 1 mark out of every 10, out of every reading, each reading, if you get another 1 mark, so you get 7 out of 1 extra correct, that's going to be an extra band score. So that could make the difference for a whole band score on your test. Right, let's go onto the yes, no, not given strategy. So remember, and I put an exclamation mark here, I put it in bold, okay? The answers are in text order. That is the thing that will save you the most time. Most of the time, when you do an IELTS reading, remember there are 3 readings, most of the time there is 1 set of questions in text order. That set of questions will test your understanding of the whole reading. They usually start close to the beginning and go close to the end of the reading and evenly spaced. So knowing that will help you to roughly find the place with the answer. Sometimes a reading will have 2 sets of questions in text order. When that happens, each set of questions will test your understanding of half of the text with a little bit of overlap. So it will overlap a little bit, but mostly it will be 1/2 of the text each. 2, look at the questions. So when you get yes, no, not given questions, look at the questions and underline the important words. Then 3, find the paragraph which mentions the information in the first question and read it carefully. So you go to the place with the synonym of the words that you've underlined in the first question and read it carefully. 4, you are looking for the author's opinion rather than facts. Okay, facts are true, false, not given questions. You're looking for the author's opinion. 5, choose your answer. Okay. 6, repeat the above process for the other questions, but remember, each question then gets easier because you're always looking in the text after the last answer. So you can ignore all the text before that answer, before the previous answers. So it will get easier as you go. Okay, now we're ready to go to a live test. I'm going to show you some questions now. And here are the questions. We have on the left, the reading. Okay, and on the left, the questions, on the right, the reading. We've got 4 questions. Remember, they're in text order. And as it says, do the following statements agree with the views? Answer yes if the statement agrees with the views of the writer. If it says the same thing, let me give you a tip here. Often, the key words to underline are the subject, the verb, so Yuri Gagarin, orbit, verb, and the object, the balloon. If in the text you can find the word Yuri Gagarin and it says that Yuri Gagarin orbited, but it might be a synonym, it might say went around instead, and the same sentence says he was in a balloon. So those are the key words, the subject, the verb, and the object. If it says all 3 of those, then it's yes. If it says something else, not a balloon or not Yuri Gagarin, then it's no. If it doesn't say the subject, the verb, and the objects, if you don't have all 3 of those things, you only have 1 or 2 of those things, then the answer may be not given because maybe it doesn't give you the answer. So that's how to do it. You've probably already started. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to do this, okay? Just type finished in the chat box when you're ready. Okay, off you go. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of you have finished. That's good. I'll just give it a little bit longer for those people who might still be doing it, because I know we'll have many different levels here. And don't worry if you're getting all the answers wrong or you're getting none of the answers, because I hope you are all making some mistakes. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, right? So you should be making some mistakes. Okay. I'll just give you another 20 seconds or so, then I'll come back and we'll start to go over the answers. Okay, Eileen's done as well. Thank you, Eileen. Okay, well, we'll start to go over the answers then. And as I said, if you get them all correct, good. Hopefully some of the tips I gave you would have helped you. Also, it's slightly shorter than the space you would have in a big reading on IELTS test day, but still, you would find the full answers within that sort of sized text often. Don't worry if you do get them wrong, because you're here to learn. If you get them right, hopefully the tips helped you a bit. Maybe your English is just very good. So let's look at number one. Yuri Gagarin was I'll just leave it there so we can read it. Yuri Gagarin was the first man to orbit Earth in a balloon. What's the answer? Put it in the chat box. No. Anybody disagree? Todd and Pio have been wrong before, so it's possible. They've also been right a lot of the time. What do you think? Okay, we'll go over the answers. Eileen said no as well. Good. Okay, that's you are correct. Why? Why are you correct? It was a rocket. Excellent. Is a balloon mentioned in the reading? The answer is yes, a balloon is mentioned, but in a different context, right? So I just have to move things on my screen so I can see the reading here. So it says high altitude balloon flights marked the beginning of human physical exploration of space. But that was just the beginning. The first man to orbit, which means to go all around the Earth, was Yuri Gagarin, and he did it in a rocket, not in a balloon. Okay, good. Number two. What have you got for number two? Humans have not traveled far into space because of the high monetary cost. Lots of yeses. And you are all correct. But what was the parallel expression for high monetary cost? What were the words for high monetary cost in the reading? High monetary cost in the reading. Yeah, prohibitive cost. And that means prohibitive, too much to be able to do something. In the UK at the moment, we have prohibitive costs for electricity almost. Good. There you go. So again, I've highlighted the words here that are important in red. Okay. What have you got for number three? Space is an empty area and largely free of risk. A few no's. And what's a synonym for the word empty area? Vacuum, yeah, and that's the word we did earlier, isn't it? The word vacuum, yeah. And as it says, its space is hazardous. Okay, what does hazardous mean? Dangerous, exactly. So you see, the tips can help you find the answers. The answers between one after the other, and highlight the subject, the verb, and the object, and match them all together, and the difference between no and not given. Those tips can help you, but you still need you need to know some of the vocabulary to get the answer. You need to know hazardous means dangerous. But if you don't know the meaning of hazardous, then you could always read ahead a little bit, and you can get, the idea from here, harmful. And you can get the idea, you can guess the meaning of that word if you don't know that meaning. Okay, finally, number four. Most astronauts have financial concerns. Here thinks it's not given. And can you remember something I told you before? Todd thinks it's no. Todd knows some rich astronauts, maybe. Yeah, I gave you one tip before that would help you get the answer here, because let's just go back through this a little bit. So here again, the answer is no. The answer is here. Then down here, after that, the answer is yes. Then after that, the answer is no. We're going in text order. But there's another tip. Yeah, Pia's got it. Okay, Pia's paying attention. There has to be, if you've got 4 or more questions, and it's usually the case that you have 4 or more, very rarely you might get only 3 in the general test. If that's the case, then this tip does not work. But when you've got 4 or more questions, there has to be one of each answer, at least one of each answer. So the answer is not given. Now, as I said, today I was looking at a big website's tests, and the tests have been written by English teachers. They're good tests, but the English teachers do not know the rules by which the IELTS reading tests are written. And I do know those rules. And one of those rules is that you must have at least one of each. And they failed because they only had not given a no answers. They didn't have a yes answer. So you can get the answer from this just by knowing that tip. Okay. But if we go up here and check, it says, putting anything, let alone humans, into space comes with a hefty price tag, etc., etc. Financial concerns is mentioned, so we have that, financial concerns, but it's nothing here about astronauts having financial concerns. The governments, maybe. The governments have some financial concerns. Maybe some of these big companies like SpaceX have financial concerns. But the astronauts, those are the people who are being sent into space. We don't know. It doesn't say. It doesn't say if they have any. So the answer is not given. Okay, good. Let's move on to matching information. Now, in my opinion, these are the hardest. It's a little bit like, I'm just going to scroll through my notes here. It's a little bit like matching headings, but matching headings are easier because when you're matching the headings, you're matching the heading, usually the topic sentence of the paragraph. So you're matching the heading with the first 1 or 2 sentences of the paragraph. With matching information, you're matching the information in the sentence, in the question, with anything inside a paragraph. So it could be any part of the paragraph. That's a lot harder. Plus, you can use, in the matching heading, you can only use the heading once. So each paragraph can only be used once. With the matching information, each paragraph can be used more than once. That makes it harder as well. So let's go over the strategy then. So the first thing you should know is the answers are not in text order. Okay, these are not text order questions. Secondly, the second thing, and you should do this really before you do any reading questions at all. The first thing you should always do is skim through the reading. Skimming through the reading, Cambridge describes that as reading quickly, which is kind of true, but a little bit misleading. You're reading quickly, you're reading quickly because you're only reading the topic sentence of each paragraph. That'll be the first 1 or 2 sentences. Then when you read that sentence, you underline the keyword that tells you what is new about that paragraph, the topic of that paragraph, okay? Then when you get to the questions, as I said before, the question will be about a particular topic. You will know which paragraph you should go to. People who do that are the people who are getting the highest scores. I taught in a big university with all the students sitting in front of me. I gave them tests. I collected their answer sheets in, and the people who did not underline the topic sentence were getting the lower scores usually. The people who had underlined those things were getting the higher scores. They were slower at the beginning because they didn't start the questions immediately, but they were much faster later because they did not have to read everything to find the answer. They could just go straight to the paragraph they needed. Okay. Number 3, read through the questions and underline the keywords and statements. Number 4, Scan the topic sentences of each paragraph where you've underlined the keywords to find the paragraph which is likely, I put here, likely to contain the answer. In this case, it's not going to be matching the matching heading. The heading will have synonyms for the words in the topic sentence. But in this case, it's going to be something that might be connected to the topic, but it's not exactly the topic itself, but is related to the topic, because it's in the later sentences in that paragraph which are developing the topic. So that's what number 5 says. Read or scan deeper into the paragraph. Read for detail. Read it more carefully to connect the keywords from the question with the keywords in the reading. Okay, then unlike what I said with matching headings, the same paragraph can be used twice. But really the key to this task is first you should skim the topic sentences. Then when you underline the keywords in the question, you have to see which topic those keywords connect with best. Then you have to go to that paragraph and see if you are correct by finding the synonyms in that paragraph which connects with the question. Sounds a bit complicated, I know, but that's why this is the hardest one. So here are the questions. There's 6 of them. I think you're going to find this a lot more challenging than the yes, no, not given, because when you have the tips for the yes, no, not given, it's really a lot easier. But even having the tips for this, it means it's hard instead of impossible, basically, okay? So on the left-hand side, we have the questions. First, though, what I want you to do is go through the topic sentence of each of these paragraphs. That'll be the first sentence, mainly. Write down the keywords on your piece of paper, okay? Then go to the questions, underline the keyword. Based on what you've just done, choose the paragraph you think is most likely to have that information. Then read the detail carefully and connect the synonyms. If you connect the synonyms, that's your answer. Remember, you might use the paragraph D once or twice or 3 times. You might use another paragraph no times. There's no rules for this. That's what makes it difficult as well. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes for this, unless you tell me you're finished sooner in the chat box. Okay? Good luck. So I'm going to check in with you. How are you doing? How many have you, which number did you get to? Okay, here's finished basically all doing number 10. Todd's on 9. I suspect some of you are a little bit behind that. Give you another 90 seconds or so. And then don't worry, we'll go through them one by one, so you'll have time to catch up. And yeah, I'll give you another 90 seconds. Okay, I think we'll start to go through some of the answers now. And don't worry if you found that difficult. This one is difficult. Okay, so let's see. What have you got? Let's go over the answers, but just to keep it on the screen so you can read it. What have you got for number 5? We've got a B. Do other people agree? Okay, Todd agrees it's B. And what makes you think that is the answer? What are the words you're connecting? So we've got 50% of matter. What does that connect with? Yeah, the word half, exactly, about half of the matter. So here, we've got it highlighted here, basically. Move things aside. See this better. Yeah, 50% of matter, about half of the baryonic ordinary matter. Now, you know, it doesn't really matter what that word means. You're always going to have words in an IELTS reading you don't know. So don't worry if there's a word you don't know the meaning of. You can usually get the answer anyway. If that was an important keyword and it's not, you could just read the next sentence and that will give you a clue. You can be able to guess the meaning. But yeah, between solar systems, between galaxies. Solar systems, galaxies. Excellent. What do you have for number 6? Todd thinks it might be C, but he's not super sure. And that's kind of a trademark of matching information. Even for native speakers, you are not completely sure of this kind of question. What were you matching up to get that answer then? What were you matching to get that answer? It's shown on the screen. Yeah, the answer is C, so good. And it's about 10% of them, only about 10% of the matter in the universe can be seen. Yeah, we're talking about 90%, dark matter is 90%. And, you know, it sort of gives us the clues here if we read these words that dark matter can't be seen. And so 10% can be seen. So that's a bit tricky, that one. It's at the beginning of the paragraph though, which helps, okay? You know, many times you can have this information buried a lot deeper in a bigger paragraph. So the fact it's at the beginning here helps us. Okay, what have you got for number 7? 2 D's for now. And what did you use? What words were you connecting? Yeah, good. So words like that. So the answer is D, Outer Space Treaty connects with global agreements, prevents any nations from claiming territory in space, connects with, rules out any possibility of territorial claims. So territory, territorial, remember that synonyms exercises we're doing at the beginning. It's a related word, it's a synonym, kind of a synonym, but it's just a related to the keyword. So that sort of thing can help you to find a place with the answer. This one is further down in the paragraph, bigger paragraph, a bit harder. And I know some of you out there will be getting a lot of these wrong or couldn't even do it, and don't worry. You're here to learn, and this is how to learn. So number 8, what have you got for number 8? C. Any differences of opinion? Todd thinks it's C as well. It's A. But let's discuss it. Maybe your answer works as well. So let's discuss. So I think it's A because it says lots of forces we do not yet fully understand can be found in space. Space is, or space contains. So we've got space contains, can be found in a way, contains a wide range of, lots of forces, we do not yet fully understand, phenomena. All those things are connecting to make it A. Why do you think it's C? Dark matter is an energy with a mysterious origin. Yes, true. And that's why this is so difficult. And as I told you all at the beginning, these are very difficult. The key thing to note here is that it says lots of forces, and dark matter is just one singular here, it's just one thing. So really A is the answer because we're talking about lots of forces. If we look at A, a wide range of phenomena, okay? So, but yeah, I understand why you got that other answer. That's why A is the best one. So number 9. We've got to D. Are we back on form? Let's have a look. Yes. Okay. So it's a bit easier. We're repeating one of the paragraphs. The information is right at the end there. You know, some missiles are being used in areas of space close to Earth. Missiles, weapon, low Earth orbit, close to Earth. Good. Finally, number 10. Number 10, we've got an A from Todd. I'm just looking at my notes here. C, not sure. I've got a B. Okay, and the reason what I'm connecting here is this is the very last piece of information, which is what's tricky about this. Sometimes that the information is right at the end. You know? So constellations are, galaxies are, localized condensations of matter. Ingredients which make up the cosmos have clumped together, condensations clumped together. That's the reason for the answer anyway. So, yeah. Here we have then all the answers together. Take a screenshot of them if you want to. Those are all the answers together. How many did you get out of 10. We've done 10 questions. How many did you get? Add them up. Are you brave enough to tell me? And, you know, in previous webinars, people have said 3, 4, you know, so don't worry if that's what you've got. So good. Okay. So here, I mean, the rough estimate then, and remember, this is you know, a webinar. You're going to have a longer text all at the same time in the real test, etc. The purpose of the webinar is to teach you techniques that can help you. So we're not talking about an exactly parallel situation. That's an indication that you could get a band 8 on test day. Yeah, Eileen, that's an indication that maybe you'd have got around that band 6 if that was an IELTS test day. Todd, an indication of around the band 6 then as well. No, this was not exactly a Cambridge. It wasn't taken from Cambridge, but was one that I've written myself. But I hope it's to the same standard. And I have some experience of the IELTS test that I'm not allowed to tell you. Okay, so I know that this was written to the right standard. Okay, so this is a Cambridge standard. Okay, so Todd miscounted. Todd's been upgraded to a 7. Yes, it should seem like Cambridge, and yeah, I wrote it myself, and I know that is a Cambridge standard. I'm not allowed to tell you why, unfortunately, but yeah, that is an absolute standard that you could expect to get. And so, yeah, those scores that you've got should be indicative, should be an indicator of the kind of score you can get on test day. But as I said, on test day, you've got the listening, you've got the writing, you've got lots of other things happening. You've got 3 readings. You're not going to get someone giving you all the tips. So it's possible you won't do as well. That's how well you could do if you really practice hard. That's the level of your English at the moment. Good. So, yeah, I'm going to give you a chance to ask me questions. I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to let you turn your cameras on as well if you want, okay, to ask me questions about any part of the IELTS test that you like. Before I do, these are different ways in which you can contact me, and I put them in the chat box as well. So you can contact me through englishwithanexpert.com. You can write to me at andy@englishwithanexpert.com. Twitter account is there, twitter.com/withanexpert. And there's a LinkedIn details as well that you can, and feel free to send me a connection request if you want to as well. But now we're going to move on to any questions. Now I need to go and allow you to start your video, yes, and allow you to unmute yourselves, yes. If you like, you now have the ability to turn your camera on, but you don't have to, or unmute yourself and speak to me if you want to, but you don't have to. Do you have any questions about any part of the test? Reading, writing, speaking, listening, any part of the test? Put it in the chat box or ask me directly. Go ahead. I'm here to answer. And if you don't, that's okay too. Akshay's got a really realistic photo, so I feel like I'm looking at him and it's live. Any questions? No questions? On Zoom, I can't see if somebody's typing or not, so I don't know. No questions. A hi from Akshay. Hello, Akshay. Do you have a question? If anybody's got a question, just type yes before you type anything else, because otherwise we're going to go. Okay, it's been about 90 minutes, and I know that it's a long time, so you've done really well. That's how long my lessons usually are as well. Unlike many schools, we have 90-minute lessons. We can go in depth and into real detail. But yeah, it was great to see you all. Thank you so much for your active participation. No, group coaching sessions, we don't do at the moment, but maybe we should start doing that. So I'll feed that back in, and maybe we will consider some group coaching classes. Okay, we'll consider that. At the moment, the classes are one-to-one. But remember, when you have a look at our website and our prices and everything, don't forget our lessons are 90 minutes long. And that's almost, well, it's double the time of some schools. Yep, you can get a recording. Actually, you will get an email later this evening. That email will have a link, and you just need to register to see the recording. You'll be able to see the recording. Yeah. Okay, and if anybody wants to see previous recordings, just send me an email. Video courses for reading. Now, if you go to our website, you'll find a place on there, I think, that recommends a reading course. Our school does not directly have a reading course at the moment, although we're working on some video courses that we'll be releasing. But we do recommend a reading course on the website. So if you can't find it, send me an email and I will show you our recommended reading course, okay? Because you've got to be careful. You've got to be really careful. 95% of the websites out there have bad information. Even the ones that look good have structured the questions incorrectly quite often. So you've got to be really careful where you go to find a good reading course, because there are lots of English teachers out there who are really good English teachers, but they don't know how the test is designed because they don't have the experience that other people do. And those other people are not allowed to tell you what that experience is because they have contracts which tell them not to tell you. So the people who say they have that experience are usually lying. Okay. So any other questions? I think that's probably all, but I mean, if you do and you didn't want to ask here, then feel free to send me an email and I'll be really happy to get back to you, okay? So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And as I said, thank you for your active participation as well. That really helps. It was good to see you all, and I'll just close down that screen now. And yeah, you'll get an email from me in about 4 hours. That's probably the last reading webinar in this series. But I am planning to reboot some webinars in a couple of months, maybe, with different parts of the test. So you'll get another email in about 2 weeks. That'll be the last email. And that email will give you a bit more information about what happens next. But thanks very much for attending. Take care and goodbye. I'll close it for all of us. Take care. Have a good weekend.